Kumar Bansal from the morning. Now we are honored and blessed to have with us our esteemed expert, Professor Raj Nehru, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Vishwakarma Skill University. And we are also blessed to have with us our guest of honor, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Tankeshwar Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Haryana. Now, I would request Dr. Vikas Garg, Head, Department of Civil Engineering, to come forward and introduce our esteemed speaker. Sir, please.
Thank you, Ashmit. Very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shri Raj Nehru ji, Shri Vishwakarma Skill University, Haryana, Chief Guest of the function and today's Chief Speaker of the event. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Tankeshwar Kumar ji, Central University of Haryana, Dr. Ajay Bansal, Convener, Faculty Development Program, HODs, faculty members, all the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to hearty welcome to our guest speaker, Shri Raj Nehru ji, Vice Chancellor, Shri Vishwakarma Skill University of Haryana, for sparing his precious time to express or share his views in the form of a lecture on leadership and teamwork for education excellence. I am very much sure all the participants would be benefited after listening you. In the same breath, I would like to welcome Vice Chancellor Dr. Tankeshwar Kumar ji, Central University of Haryana, to join in this FDP. Sir, your presence always boosts up to do more work as you are always doing for our university. We are honored to have dynamic leader in the field of skill education, Shri Raj Nehru ji. It is a matter of great pride and honor me to introduce our today's guest speaker, Shri Raj Nehru ji. He is a great and dynamic personality for our and he is a here for our faculty development program. Raj Nehru ji is the youngest founding vice chancellor in the country who left his lucrative corporate career to serve the dream of transforming national skill ecosystem that is on high priority in the state and country. He has been appointed as the vice chancellor of Shri Vishwakarma Skill University, Government of Haryana, the first skill university of Haryana and sixth in the world. He has also been appointed by Governor of Haryana as Director on the board of Haryana State Electronics Development Corporation Limited. University Grant Commission has appointed him as a member on the formation of Implementation Plan for National Education Policy NEP 2020. He has been nominated as member of Advisory Council of Policy Research Foundation for Life by National Executive Committee of the Foundation. He is former Mission Director, Haryana Skill Development Mission. A veteran in human capital management, has spent more than 2 decades in various roles and different organizations. Started his career with Indian Army and then moved to corporate sector, pharmaceutical, IT and ITES, manufacturing, automobile and engineering and energy sector. He has worked for more than a decade with IBM and managed the global portfolio as Director, Leadership, Development. Prior to joining the Skill University, he was Director HR at Schneider Electric. He has a wide global and cross-cultural experience and has worked in Philippines, China, Europe, and United States for his projects. Under his leadership, SVSU has pioneered the dual education industry integrated model that has become highly popular now as Earn While Learn scheme. He has also led SVSU to win various awards by national and international bodies for its exemplary work in the area of dual vocational education. He is on the board and committees of various organizations like AICT, UGC, MSDE, IILM University, Jammu Central University, NESCOM, Sector Skill Council, Guru Jamveshwar, University of Science and Technology, YMCA, University of Science and Technology, Gurugram, and Global Village Foundation. He is a member on the steering committee under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana by Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Recently, he is appointed as Member Secretary for the Skilling and Education Task Group by Administrative Reforms Department, Government of Haryana. He is a member of committee constituted to NSQF alignment under NCVT by MSDE. He has written many articles, blogs, and has recently got 2 chapters published by Business Expert Press New York in the book titled Human Resource Management. For organization sustainability, he is recipient of Innovative Leader Award, Brick of Change Award, and Neelkant Samman 2019. He has received Hall of Fame Skills Leadership Award in 2020. Recently, he has been honored with the Most Inspiring Vice Chancellor Award by Golden AIM Conference and Awards for Excellence and Leadership in Education. He is an active philanthropist and is founder of Utsav Foundation. This foundation educates and skills underprivileged children from slums. Currently, this foundation has adopted 2 slums and 80 children. He has undertaken various philanthropic activities and has worked on ground zero in the disaster hit areas of Uttarakhand, Visakhapatnam, and Jammu Kashmir. He received a special commendation from the state government and PMO office for his contribution toward disaster hit village in J&K. Without further ado, sir, I invite you to enlighten us, and I hope every participant will be enlightened and he will get a very good knowledge with your lectures. Sir, please.
First of all, uh, thank you very much for such an elaborate introduction. It's really heartwarming to hear so many praises in such a long uh, throw. Thank you very much once again. And I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Tankeshwar Kumarji, Vice Chancellor of Central University of Haryana, Mahendragarh, for giving me this opportunity to come and speak today through this digital mode on this very important topic that most of the institutions, not only in the academics, but every institution today, whether it is in social, political, economic, education, industry, corporate, every institution is struggling with this topic. So thank you once again. And once again, thanks to the workshop convener, Dr. Ajay Kumar Bansal, along with Dr. Vikas Garg and the organizing committee and the student organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. So when I was looking at various speakers, they have spoken about various aspects of this leadership that you are trying to bring in into the institution and also develop the people who are the backbone of the institution. I was thinking, what should I be talking about today? Though it's a very vast subject, and talking about this is not very easy because it has got multiple dimensions. So I picked up a couple of dimensions that I thought very appropriate based on my personal experience in the last couple of years while working in an educational institution and my almost 25 years working with the corporate sector in IT, manufacturing, engineering sector. So I thought that a blend of my personal experience can be shared with all of you, because this is what I also feel when I want my institution to be an institution of excellence, with thought leadership emerging from this institution. So I have picked up a couple of thoughts that I would share with all of you. So the subject is very clear. You talk about the leadership, and when most of us are asked about what do you mean by leadership, so many people would have many definitions of leadership. But eventually, when I feel what is the most appropriate definition of leadership to me, the ability of an individual to see the future. Now, it's not about the clarity of future. It's not about the complete visibility of future. It's about predictability and individuals' ability to predict certain situations. Now, while we have the ability to predict, so that requires many skills, many competencies are involved into predicting, developing that vision. At the same time, another part of the leader's role is ability to share that what a leader has been able to see, ability to share that with his people, with his teams. Now, this is not where the things end. The third important aspect of a leader is not only to visualize, not only to share, but also to create an influence, also to motivate, also to create that ability of uh, moving for, vying for that vision that he or she has shared with the people, which means people should now follow that. So ability to see, ability to share, ability to influence, ability to encourage, and then ability to make a team to follow that. Now, this all requires many things. It's not easy. Today, if we have to think of something and share with our own children, our children sometimes don't listen to us. So how do people listen to a leader in certain situations while working in professional organizations? It's a very, very difficult thing. So I think two important aspects that I always have loved to share with my people is that two important drivers make this possible. And if you have that ability to see future, if you have that ability to share with people, there are two important things that can create influence over team, and one is character and another is competence. Now, these two are very crucial for creating that trust among your people to really believe in you and then want to follow you. Remember, people do not follow you simply because you are a good charactered person, you are an honest person, you are a friendly person, or you listen to them, or you support them, or you help them. This is very important part of the individual leadership characteristic. But remember, only character is not the driver of followership. The another aspect along with the character is the competence. So competence is your ability to deliver on the work that you are supposed to deliver, the knowledge of the job, the ability to perform on that job. So character and competence are critical for you to create trust among your team so that that team can believe in you and they follow you. So, in nutshell, leadership is the capacity to release and engage human potential in pursuit of a common cause. So, are you able to release and engage human potential? Now, this this is very important for you to know. When you say capacity to release and engage human potential, it means you should be able to understand and identify the human potential in the people as well. Suppose you have a team, and unless you know what are the capacities, what are the abilities, competencies, and potential in the individual, you will not be able to leverage it. So it's important that at the core of leadership, the leader has the ability to identify those capacities of individuals. Now, how do you identify capacities? The first thing is you should be knowing your own capacities. You should be knowing your own skill sets. You should be knowing your own potential. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm actually talking about this with great conviction because this is a very psychological aspect of the leadership, knowing other person's abilities and knowing your abilities, because there is a huge research that has gone into it, and I will come to it in the corresponding slides. But before I take you there, you also need to understand one thing, that leadership has in recent past gone through a terrible is going through terrible challenges, because there was a time when things were very hunky dory, and things were getting managed very well. You have seen many organizations in the past. I don't need to talk about it. You have heard about the Kodak. Kodak was one of the largest photo company, camera company that we have heard about in last so many years. And there was a time, I remember in 90s or 95, 98, somewhere around that period, Kodak was the company which was having more than 1.5 lakh employees working for them. And more than 85% of the world photographs were clicked by the Kodak cameras. Can you find a Kodak camera today anywhere? Kodak has completely vanished as a camera company. Not completely, but it has vanished from the market as an organization. And why it vanished? Because the digital cameras and mobile cameras, they landed up into the market, and uh, Kodak was completely taken sleeping. And that led to a situation where Kodak had to suffer a big jolt, and at a point of time it became a bankrupt company. Not only Kodak, even if you travel to India, you will find many such organizations. We had a large organization. We were very proud of it. We used to call it HMT, a Hindustan Machine Tool or something like this. We used to call it, and we used to wear the watches of HMT with great pride. But you have seen what has happened. We had the pride of the two-wheelers on the road, like Bajaj scooters. You won't find many Bajaj scooters today on the road. Bajaj scooters have completely lost their charm on the market. We had, I remember in our childhood, we had Western TV, GCG TV, Dianora TV. Nowhere you can find those. We used to have, I remember Murphy radio during my childhood days. Nowhere we can find these Murphy radios. Or we used to have Rajdoot motorcycles. Can you find any one of them? We had pride in Ambassador car. This entire Ambassador is completely off the road. And very recently, we saw the large corporations like Nokia or Dell Computers. They also have gone through a lot of struggle. And why I am telling you about this is that all of them, they're not bad at quality. If you look at the product and the services that these organizations provided us, none of these organizations had a bad quality. What actually impacted them was the bad leadership. And when I say bad leadership, and this is very important for me to explain here, the leadership about the clarity of the vision, the clarity of the future, the clarity of understanding, the predicting and finding what's happening around the world. Had Ambassador predicted the entry of Maruti, maybe Ambassador could have revamped and reorganized or restructured itself to give a competition back to the Maruti when Marutis came in 80s. But they couldn't manage it. And as the competition moved from one shelf to another shelf, the world has also become very complicated because of so much of automation and because of so much of speed and velocity in and disruption in disruptive innovation. The world has changed, and that's the world which is called VUCA world. And this VUCA world requires a very, very different kind of leadership. So most of you would be familiar with this VUCA terminologies. We call it volatile, complex, ambiguity, and uncertain. This is how the world is actually moving right now. And the leader's role in a VUCA world is one very important is that how much do you know about the situation that you are into? That's number one. And number two is how well can you predict the results of your action? Means on the one side, you have to be in the complete control of knowledge of the situation that is happening today, that is going to happen tomorrow, or that may happen day after tomorrow. That's number one. So how much are you able to know that? So based on that ability to know what's going to happen, you will have to plan. And not only you will have to plan, you also will have to develop an ability to predict the results of your action. Now see that kind of challenge has today come in front of leaders. And this leadership challenge is today going through this VUCA kind of a situation where you have complexity of the situation, you have volatility. Now, when you look at the ambiguity and uncertainty, it sometimes looks like both of them are same, but they are not same. In uncertainty, you may still have some information on which you can bank on, but when it comes to ambiguity, it is completely clueless. You are not sure what's going to happen, and still a leadership is expected to come and think and predict and act, because most of the times you might have seen that people, when they are in ambiguous or uncertain situations, they sit down, they don't move forward, they think they are not able to get a solution. So what happens is that in an ambiguous or an uncertain or a complex or a volatile situation, the test of the leadership is how leadership gets up and gears up and predicts and plans. Because most of the organizations that I was talking about, when they had a VUCA situation, instead of getting up and looking ahead, they prefer to sit back, and they thought that, okay, this will also go and we will regain the market, which didn't actually happen, and eventually they had to go. I'm just sharing with you one example of IBM because I worked in IBM for almost 15 years. And I have seen IBM, how it went through the difficult times and how it grew and how it later matured. And remember, IBM as an organization started a computer tabulating recording company. It was an organization which manufactured those large computers when it actually came in some 100 years back. And remember, today, IBM is nowhere into computer manufacturing. They sold their IBM computer manufacturing completely to Lenovo. Now, if you look at the way IBM today is structured, their entire business lines have got completely overhauled in last couple of decades. Today, IBM's main business is into cognitive solutions, is into global business services and technology services and systems and global financing. Nowhere you will see the businesses actually, the original business that IBM had started, the hardwares and developing the computer and software and all that. Nowhere today IBM is into it. And if you look at the overall structuring and business contribution, the total share of these businesses of IBM, you'll be surprised that no. The cognitive solutions and the global business services, they are having, and technology services, which now is into the cloud, they are having the major contribution. Look at the margins, the gross margins of IBM that earns. The cognitive solutions are giving them the highest margin. And this is 2018. But if you look at the 2021 business results of IBM, you will be surprised that this is how IBM had predicted that they have to step out of the hardware business, they have to step out of the IT business and move towards more differentiated solutions. And today, if you look at in 2021, their net the growth in the cognitive solutions is more than 7 to 8%. Their net growth in the global business services is more than 12 to 14%. Their technology solutions, like for example, we are talking about cloud-based solutions, they are more than 15% of growth. So this is where leadership plays a very important role. And now I have been recently reading about where IBM is moving. They are moving towards the hybrid cloud, and that's the part of their technology services business. So what does it tell us? It tells us that if leadership or leaders have ability to visualize the future and then ability to create an action for that, and then ability to share it with people and ability to inspire them to work on that, the success of organization is always bigger and better and better. Now, this is the leadership model that we used to follow when I was in IBM, and IBM still continues to follow this leadership model. And let me tell you, when I say leadership and the business models, they are not different from any institution. So today you can relate and resonate this business leadership model with an academic leadership model as well. Look at the drivers of the leadership that IBM had been talking about. On the one side is strategy, and on the other side is execution. So, which means visualizing. On the one side is visualizing, is envisioning, is developing those foresights. Now, those foresight, the four drivers of the strategy is market insight. Now, for an academician or a business leader, there's not a big difference. The market insight is about the products and services that the businesses today are offering. And the market insight for an academician is also about what are the changes happening in the domain where my students tomorrow will have to go. If my engineer is today getting enrolled into a program today, after 4 years, when the engineer completes the program, can or am I, as an academic leader, able to predict where the changes will land the student and whether the student will be able to perform in those conditions that will be emerging after 4 years? Now, my point here is that look at this leadership model and see that how successful organizations today are using leadership models, and these business leadership models have made them successful. On the one side, having the market insight, developing a strategic intent, creating a business design, and having an innovation focus is a part of developing a strategy. And this is not a different for anyone, whether it's a social leadership or academic leadership or a corporate leadership or an industrial leadership. Anyone, this is the crux of developing a strategy. And on the execution side, it's about who are the people you are going to place into doing that. So are you having the right talent for you? Are you having the right skill sets among the people who have to actually work and deliver on that? Have you identified and defined the critical tasks that the talent has to deliver on? Are they clear on the critical task? Are interdependencies? Today we work in silos. This is my engineering department, this is my management department. They all work in different silos. But the times are changing. The interdisciplinary collaborations are becoming very, very crucial and critical, because the way the production services are getting developed and designed are having interdisciplinary approaches within the corporate organizations as well. So the tasks and interdependencies in the corporate world is also focusing on that. And that's what the academic institution have to also understand this, that how their leadership, how their talent, how their organization, how their people can work on this. And then you have formal structures in the organization, which every organization has. We are having our own statutes. We can develop our own statutes. We can develop our improvise our own statutes with time, keeping into mind and what's changing and what that change requires us to incorporate. For example, the performance management system of the academic institutions. I think our performance management structure, performance management policies, they need to go through a significant change, because unless we do a formal organizational structuring for our performance management system and align it to what changes we have seen and what changes are we predicting, we will not be able to make a successful organization. And at the end, look at what they are achieving out of it. There is a market result, but there is also a performance opportunity. See, both are different. Market result is what you had actually planned, what you wanted to achieve. So, for example, a business had planned to achieve $100 million revenue in a year, or an academic institution had planned to develop these 5 competencies among the student. But the performance opportunity is that the market during this time has also moved ahead, or also moved in a different direction. And there was a higher potential which we could have delivered more than what the market results were planned. So the performance opportunity is that between what you delivered and between what you could have delivered, that gap is the performance opportunity. There is another term that in the business leadership we use is that the potential gap. So the potential gap is you may have still achieved the results that you had targeted for yourself, but with the competence, capability, and the strengths that you had, you could have delivered more. So that's called the potential gap. Now, a leader has to think of all these things. And when I say this, if you look at all around the world, the leaders of all great organizations, leaders of successful organizations, whether you are in academics or you are in corporate, I have found personally, because when I interacted with people, when I used to be in Columbia University working with them, or doing for some programs, or London Business School, so we found how they were always a step ahead, and that staying step ahead was done through their very systematic and very innovative consulting with the industries. They always stay ahead by doing that consultative work with the industry to understand where industry is moving and how their academic world has to make certain changes. So this brings us back to the VUCA and what kind of roles and responsibilities it leaves on. So there must be a vision for every academic leader. There must be an understanding of that and what are the actions emerging out of it. How clear are you communicating with the people, and how are you developing competencies? So this vision, understanding, clarity, and ability, these are the replies to a VUCA situation. And VUCA leadership is the vision, understanding, clarity, and ability. So uh, VUCA doesn't mean that you are gone. VUCA also means that you have a tool in your hand, and that's what I I wanted to set the context before we move ahead. This is a very recent survey that has been published by McKinsey, and McKinsey has given us a prediction of future, that where future skills are shifting towards. If you look at the 2016 report versus what they are predicting is going to happen in 2030, you will be surprised to see that most of the skills in the emerging business environments, in the economic environments, would be focusing higher towards the technological interventions, social and emotional skills, and higher cognitive skills. If you look at this, the basic cognitive skills and the physical and manualization is going to strongly die down in the coming days. There is a high probability that if the students are not equipped with the relevant technological knowledge, relevant social and emotional skills, it would be very difficult for them to be successful in the coming organizations. So this brings us to the future world skills that the people would be requiring. So a design mindset, a virtual collaboration mindset, cross-cultural competencies, cognitive management, new media literacy, computational thinking, social intelligence, transdisciplinarity. These are going to be the most critical skills that any institution has to think if they have to stay ahead on the curve as an academic institution. Because if their students leaving their institutions with these skill sets are going into the corporations industry or doing their own work, they are going to set the benchmark for higher success, and that will determine the quality of leadership and the contribution of leadership towards what they are actually supposed to do. I also thought to share with you that in future you will see different types of jobs that will be coming on the scenario. Most of us may not have even heard of these jobs. So if you look at on the left side of the box that I have put together, they're very interesting jobs, and many of these jobs are not even yet heard of. But still, I'm telling you that many organizations are actually thinking or developing their products which will require these type of job roles. And that brings us that what the institutions can do. You cannot actually bring all the job roles today in your work, but what you can do is that how do you develop the higher levels of proficiencies in the following skills, which is complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others. Now what I mean to say is that when you are developing your courses, programs, whether it's in technical side, non-technical side, or vocational side, how are you developing how are you developing or curating a mechanism where students, while they are studying what they are studying, that study process, the curriculum is designed in such a way, the pedagogy is developed in such a way that their complex problem solving proficiency is developed of higher level, critical thinking is developed, and this is possible. It all depends on the academic leadership, how they are predicting what's happening, what's changing, what would be required by a student to do. For example, what we did very recently here is that we went to 2-3 organizations and tried to study the success profiles of the successful engineers. Say, for example, some in good companies, the GTs, graduate engineering trainees who joined them and who were very successful in first 5 years. We tried to study what were the significant skill sets, traits, knowledge, competencies they demonstrated compared to others. And we found that there were specific decision making abilities that they had developed, which included operating in a complex situation and trying to find out multiple data points and then steering through that. Now this is a complex problem that you have to develop as a project or as a case or as a problem while you are developing your curriculum, and try to build those scenarios where students can stretch their thinking, stretch their cognitive abilities so that these skill sets can be developed. And as we do that, I think it's going to be a great demonstration of a good leader. I don't need to talk to you about these technologies. These technologies are going to come, and these technologies are going to disrupt every job, every profile. These technologies are going to disrupt. So you have to think about every course program that you are developing and the corresponding technologies that may be disrupting that in the coming days, and how such technologies can be made a part of it. Now, I need to tell you something about a very interesting thing from here onward. So while I mentioned to you what leadership is, while I mentioned to you that what's happening in the organizations, the disruption that's being caused, and the constant shift of various organizations from one type of organization to another type of organization, every organization, when I was in IBM, we used to profile every job role, which means that every job role requires different set of thinking, different set of skills, different set of abilities, different set of competencies. Now, based on every job role, the profiles of those job roles are created. And when the profiles of those job roles are created, people, students, youngsters, experienced people, depending upon the type of job role, they are then assessed and mapped. For example, if you look at an engineer job role on the left hand side, top left hand side, there is an engineer job role. Now you see there are some boxes made, red, blue, green, and yellow, and then there is a profile made. That engineer profile is very high towards blue. Now I'll explain to you what does it mean. Similarly, if you go towards an artist, it is diagonally opposite to the engineer on the right hand side. The artist has a completely opposite profile. It's high in yellow. So These are the way the profiles have been created in the organization. These are standard profiles, and in the coming days the emerging profiles will also have a standard profile. So a student will have to demonstrate, or a prospective employee will have to demonstrate those abilities to match the requirement of that profile. Now, how does it impact, how does it impact us? It impacts us because as a leader today, unless you are able to understand that what is going to happen in the organization, uh, what kind of changes are happening outside the organization, if you are not able to do that, you will not be able to make certain disruptive changes in what you want your students to deliver. Then once you understand that, are you able to develop solutions? In certain situations, you may have to develop off the hook solutions. So you may have to take risks. You may have to cross the boundaries at certain point of time from what is being explained. But that all depends upon the ability and appetite of a leader to take risks, take responsibilities, take initiatives, engage people. So that is where the leadership role will come, if we have to really make our youngsters become proficient in their desired job roles that they are aspiring. Now, how organizations do this? In every organization that today you see, Google, Microsoft, IBM, TCS, and many more organizations I have worked, for example, the Apple or LinkedIn, most of these organizations, or most of the organizations that I am of, they use certain profiling techniques. Those profiling techniques help them to identify right set of resources for doing the right set of job. Now, some of the profiles, we call them psychometric profiles. And these psychometric profiles are used to assess the leadership qualities of individuals based on their thinking preferences. And one of the psychometric profiles that I'm sharing with you is based on a very famous and scientifically validated profile theory propounded by Dr. Ned Herman. This Dr. Ned Herman had actually worked on the research that was conducted by Roger Sperry some 4 or 5 decades back, when he was working on the epilepsy patients. And during his epilepsy trials and many surgeries, he found that the brain has got two halves, and then the theory of left brain and right brain emerged. So I will not go into the how the theory emerged, but this theory of left brain and right brain actually was further worked by another scientist. His name was Dr. Ned Herman. He further classified this left brain and right brain theory into a 4 quadrant brain theory, which is upper left, upper right, lower right. And he gave it a metaphor of thinking preferences. And he said that the brain has got 4 different halls: limbic brain and cerebral brain and left brain and right brain. So he classified this limbic brain, which is the combination of the lower two B and C, and the cerebral brain is the combination of upper two A and D, and the left brain is the combination of A and B, and the right brain is the combination of D and C. He said, no, in these modes, people think. So there are 4 modes of thinking. One is a mode A thinking, mode B thinking, mode C thinking, mode D thinking. And people have their preferences lying in any of these modes. And now, what are these modes? Ned Herman said that every human being has got these 4 modes, and one mode, that is the blue mode, is the mode of facts. Mode of green is mode of form, mode of red is mode of feeling, and mode of D is mode of future. So these are the 4 modes of thinking in human beings. And each mode has got further classification that what these modes mean. Now, a left mode of thinking in an individual largely means that the individual is has preferences lying in data, lies in mathematical, analytical, quantifiable kind of stuff. So you give numbers to this person becomes very excited, or this person is very comfortable with analyzing the information, analyzing the data. So this is one mode of thinking. The another mode of thinking is more about structure. It's more about being organized. It's more about being procedural. It's more about being conformist to rules and regulations. The red mode is the empathetic mode. It's the more of a feeling mode. It's more about emotions. It's more about relationships. It's more about expression. It's more about communication and talking. And the fourth mode is experiential self. It's more about future. It's more about imagination. It's more about breaking the rules and working on something new. It's more about liking the surprises. It's more about curiosity. It's more about imagination. Now, Ned Harmon and Roger Speedy, based on their empirical researches, they found that every human brain has got these four modes of thinking. And every human being may be good at one mode, maybe very good at one mode, and maybe extremely great at one mode, and maybe low at some other modes. So one person can have two modes doing very good, and some other two modes may not be very good. And some people may have three modes doing very good and one mode not very good. And some people may be having all four modes very good. Like, for example, I showed you in the previous chart, you see these modes. So, for example, when we talk about a multi-dominant translator, the multi-dominant translator has got all four modes as dominant. But when we look at an engineer, the engineer has a profile which has got high preference lying in data analysis, mathematics, quantification. But when you look at the profile of an artist or entertainer, on the right side, you'll find the artist or entertainer has to be high on yellow or high on red. So based on the research of Ned Herman and Roger Speedy, organizations, which is called Herman organization, it's operating from Australia, they developed this profile. And this profile gives them an idea about the human preferences. Now, all of you who are watching this today, all of you will have a preference in some place. Someone may be very good at blue, someone may be very good at yellow, someone may be good at green, someone may be good at red. And it all depends upon where your nurturing has happened. You know, this thinking preference model has got two fundamentals. That 20% is a born part, which is called the nature part. So 20% of preferences are born with the birth. So they are predisposition of DNA. But 80% of the preferences are nurture. So 20% is nature, 80% is nurture, which is a good news. That means you can develop some of your preferences as you grow in your life. So now, how does it matter? It matters because depending upon where your preferences will lie, you will act accordingly. If someone is very good at experimental self, his likings would always like in ideating, always looking at different way of doing this. अगर आप किसी, if someone who is very good at yellow, if you ask him to do everything repeatedly in his life, he will become very bored in doing that work. So his interest would always lie in doing the same thing but in a different manner. But if you ask a green person to make changes, he would not like frequent changes. He would not like ideas. He would not like taking risk. He would not like breaking the rules. He wants to be more, or she wants to be more conformist, more procedural, more structured, more aligned to the system. Look at the rational self. If this person is asked, he likes the complete logical approach to a situation. which means, has the data been seen? Has it been analyzed? Has it been verified? Has it indicated it? He will go by the trend. He will go by the indication of some analysis. He will go by the indication of data. But if you look at the red, the feeling part, the data and analysis does not make a big difference. What makes the difference is the relationship. What makes the difference is the communication. What makes the relationship is the emotional feeling and the bond with the other person. Now, all these are important drivers of human behavior. The way your preferences are inside you is the way you will also respond and react and behave in the outer world. So typical yellow will see from different point of view. You know, they will be able to adapt quickly to changes or to new situation. So when there are changes happening frequently, so a person who is at high end yellow will not have a challenge. But if there are frequent changes happening, a person with the high green may have difficulties in adapting with that. So uh, every quadrant will have different pluses and different minuses. Every quadrant will have different strengths and different areas of opportunity. But that doesn't mean that any quadrant is better than any other quadrant. All four quadrants have their own importance. But what is important is that people who are good in one quadrant, whose preferences lie in one quadrant, they need to only develop the habit of understanding the people who may be diagonally opposite to their quadrants. That is the quality of leadership. And in the beginning chart, we saw how will you influence people? You can influence people only when you understand what they prefer. And if you understand what they prefer and you talk in their language of what they prefer, you will gain respect of the people with whom you are working, because they will feel that you empathize with them and you listen to them and you understand them. And that is the hallmark of the good leader. And all these cognitive influences also, as I said in the previous chart, they have the impact on the various professions, various career objectives that one individual has in their lives. Now, the same preferences will also have an impact on your management and leadership style. People who are very high in a blue quadrant may be more authoritative, maybe more directive, maybe more instructive kind of leaders, maybe more prescriptive kind of leaders, compared to people who are high in yellow. They would be more adventurous, they would be more visionary, they would be more entrepreneurial leaders. They would be more holistic because they can't make a linear thinking as a part of their leadership style. They will be more horizontal. They will be getting more and more inputs. Without that, they will not feel satisfied. So a typical red would be one who will rely on engaging more people, who will rely on getting more ideas from different people, who will rely on communicating with more and more people and then developing a solution. And a typical green leadership style would be more conservative and more directed and structured by the organization policies and principles, and depending upon the rules and regulations, may reach out to people, may not reach out to people, depending upon what that person is keen about. And he would not want to make any changes. He may want to go by the traditions. Now, what happens because of these different preferences? There are different types of jobs that require, for example, if there is a security analyst required, an auditor required, a typical green green preferences would be high. But suppose there is a scientist who requires to work, or a researcher, it will require you a blue and a yellow and a red kind of thinking, because you have to get data, you have to explore the data, you have to meet many people to find more solutions to a problem. So this thinking preferences also impacts the leadership. Now, these thinking preferences also have the impact on the learning styles. And as a teacher, when I'm telling you about this, you may have the students also, and you as yourself as a teacher or an academician will also have a preference. And if you have a preference lying in some quadrant, your teaching practices, pedagogy will also be influenced by that. And remember, students will also be coming from different thinking preferences, and every thinking preferences will have absorption requirements of learning in different way. A typical yellow thinker or yellow preference would love to have exploration, conceptualizing, synthesizing in their learning approaches, versus a typical blue who would love to have more data, more information, more theory, more analysis, more comparisons in their learning approaches. While as red high preference would love to have group discussions, would love to have interactions, would love to have debates, would love to have more people joining in and participating. So you see, these four quadrants will also give you wider scope to understand your audience and then prepare your teaching lesson strategies, curriculum, to make your entire learning more inclusive. And let me tell you, the great organizations today, when we call them entrepreneurial organizations, they can only succeed when they have inclusivity in their organization, in their leadership. It's not about which quadrant is very good. It's about all quadrants are very good, because some elements of each quadrant is required in every situation. And entrepreneurial organization, entrepreneurial leadership is requires all of them if you have to strategically transform your organization. And what does this leadership mean to us? It means that when you are able to move through all the thinking preferences, when you are able to understand your preference, and when you are able to understand the preferences of others, whether your clients, your customers, your institutions, your industry partners, your academic partners, you are actually positioning yourself for a more agile, more resilient, more innovative, more of a risk taking, and more of a dealing with uncertainty kind of a leader in the organization. And when you are able to do that, you are not going to take your program, your institution to the pinnacles of success, because that is where the great institutions today, if you look at the great and successful institutions in the world today, it is because their leadership has shown agility, their leadership has shown resilience, their leadership has shown innovation, their leadership has shown creativity, their leadership has shown ability to work in uncertain environments, and their leadership has shown a very innovative collaboration with various stakeholders. And that is very, very critical if you really want to succeed in the coming days as a leader. Because remember, unless you are able to operate from all four different thinking preferences, you will be missing some people. You see, some people who are very good at green and blue, if they ignore yellow and red, they may be missing people who have the visualization capability, who have the ideas. And because they miss them, it will impact the quality of the organizational excellence. And remember, ideas emerge from communities, and communities means the group of students, group of organizations, group of teachers, group of faculties, group of departments. So if you really want organization to succeed, you have to have ideas from the community, and leaders who are able to influence the community will be able to make their organization successful. And system comprises of diverse individuals, and this diversity is fundamentally important, because unless you are able to understand this diversity, you will not be able to develop a social network within the organization or outside the organization. And a social network is crucial for the success, and social network can only be developed when you are understanding the diversity in thinking, and that diversity in thinking will make you the most preferred leader for the organization. So when we look at the most of the successful organizations, we'll find that they have always relied on diverse solutions, and those solutions are far from the traditional thought processes, and those solutions are based on inclusivity by including people of different organizations. Today, most of the successful leaders, they do not have all the knowledge in themselves. Their knowledge comes from multiple stakeholder sources. But what these leaders have done, successful academic leaders have done, they have developed that ability to influence others to come and share that, and then they synthesize that, diffuse that, and come out with some better solutions for the organization. And I think the times are changing so fast, the automation is bringing so much of disruption, that unless educational institutions, the leadership of the educational institutions, do not shake themselves up and do not think in a disruptive manner, the times are going to be tough for many educational institutions. And that's where the academic leadership is fundamentally very important, and there needs to be an investment made in developing people, and from a sustainable development perspective, and from an inclusive development perspective. Unless we do that, we will not be able to meet the purpose and the outcome. And given that India is gunning for a 10 trillion economy, our prime minister has already said 5 trillion economy in next few years and 10 trillion economy. But remember, at the same time, other economies will also be growing. And if they are growing, by the time we reach we are already 3 trillion, we reach 4 trillion or 5 trillion, the other economies would have already moved ahead. So a disruptive leadership is required, where we have more innovations coming from the system, and those innovations are fetching us more economic advantages to the country and to the nation and to the institution. And that can only happen when we create that, like in corporates, they become the idea factories. The academic institutions have also to become idea factories, and only then this these kind of things are going to be possible. Before I conclude, look at the book that I referred to. His name was Angus Madison. If you read Angus Madison, his book is The Contours of World Economy. You'll be surprised that if you read this book, you'll find that in his book he was an economic historian of British British origin, and he wrote this book in which he compared the world economies right from 1st century AD until 17th, 18th century. You'll be surprised to know today India has a GDP of 5 to 6%, 7% of the total world GDP. Remember, in 1st century AD, Angus Madison in his report is saying that India's global GDP contribution was more than 35, 37%. And until 17th, 18th century, it oscillated between 35 and 25%. Which means there was something terrible happening in India, that India's GDP was far, far higher than any of the world countries that we see today as the world leaders with the high GDP. Something was happening in India. And if you see what was happening in India, it was the educational institutions, the kind of educational model we were adopting, whether it was Takshila, Nalanda, Sompura, Udantapuri, Vallabi, Sharda, Kantanur Shala, one after another educational institutions. They produced one after another brilliant scholars, and they produced one after another innovations in India, and that fetched India so much of wealth that came to India, and India became the what we call Sone ki Chidiya, because that kind of wealth we were able to create. Now in last 500-600 years, we have lost. We had the invaders, we had the colonials, they actually corrupted our entire mindset. We have to take the risk and come out of it, and re-establish the leadership that we have had demonstrated for so many millennials, where India was on the top of the charts of the world. And I think the time has come. We need to come forward and take accountability in this direction. So with that, I stopped myself, because I was told that 1 hour is when what I have to speak, so I can go on. But thank you very much for the time and opportunity given to me. If any question, I'm happy to answer. We still have 10 minutes to go.
Participants have any question?
Hello, sir. Myself Chandrasekhar from VFSDR University speaking to you. Hello. Hello, sir.
Chandrasekhar.
Hello. Hello, sir.
Please go ahead.
Hello.
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 Yes,
Hello,
please go
sir.
ahead.
Myself Chandrasekhar speaking to you. I'm Chandrasekhar speaking to you. I'm from VFSDR University. So, as you have given a nice demonstration of a futuristic plan, and as we see, we have a clarity of the thinking, the different mindsets, different likes and the interests of the students, and that will be leading to new future engineers and industry leaders. I think that is a perspective you are looking forward. Okay, sir, am I clear, sir?
Yeah.
Now, what is the need of the hour of the duty of the teacher is to create opportunities for the all four kinds of students, and then support them, and then see that they flourish and they become the individual, and they become the industry leaders. And we need industry leaders and the technological leaders, and to have the breakthroughs. And the trend is entrepreneurship, and as you said at the top of it, and some of them they have it, they need support, they need encouragement, both academically, technically, and financially. Okay, sir. And the I think industry and industry also has to support financially. So this is what is required, sir. And what I wish to say to you is the students who are interested to do entrepreneurship skills, to develop them, and kind of support is required for them, financial and technical support, and give them opportunity to nurture their ideas and to bloom into real world change makers. I want them to be real world change makers. So young students are having the capability to do that, and they are going to stay for sustainability and development. As you said, it's a wonderful session, sir. Thank you. And how we are to cater this? This is our question. And as we see, mixed rather with the class, with different kinds of interests will be there, learning styles will be there, and teaching styles are there. So how to map them and how to create that environment to support them, and emotionally and physically, so that they can equip with the better quality of education.
So thank you. I think
Sure.
very good description you gave. I only want to just correct one thing. I did not talk about the entrepreneurship. I talked about the entrepreneurial leadership. So there's a difference between entrepreneurship and
Yeah, yeah,
entrepreneurial leadership. So entrepreneurial leadership is more about ability to visualizing the future, ability to think differently,
yeah,
ability to take risks, agility, ability to work under
yeah,
uncertain conditions and environment, and
yeah.
being resilient and being innovative. These are the entrepreneurial leadership qualities. So
Yes, sir.
I'm just talking about that. That's number one. Number two
Yeah,
is you have a huge class today. Now,
yeah,
how do you assess people for their inclusivity so that you can create an
yeah,
inclusive teaching methodology? So for that, many academicians, they do different things. They can have a short assessment in the class before the new batch starts. They can have
yes,
interaction
sir.
with the students. They can
Yes, sir.
in the orientation, they can pick up the preferences of the students, and based on some of the small intervention that faculties or the teacher can run in the class to understand the different preferences of the student, a faculty can then design and develop the entire teaching pedagogy that he or she would have thought of.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So nice of you, sir. So nice of you, sir. It is not only rather to teach the heads, but the hearts. The
Yeah.
hearts, we have to win the hearts, so that they'll be inspired to move ahead emotionally and connected to them. Thank you, sir. So nice of you, sir. Nicely explained to you. Thank you.
Any other participant? Any question?
Hello. Hello. Good evening, sir. I'm Tarun Singh from Central University of Haryana, Mehendagarh. Sir, I have one question. What kind of quality or type of quality is required in faculty member, sir, for the leadership, sir?
What kind of?
Hello. Quality or type of quality, sir, in the faculty member for the leadership, sir?
So that's what I was talking about. That today, given the kind of volatility, complexity, uncertainty uh, in this kind of a situation, one important thing is how does a faculty demonstrate creativity? And that creativity in all aspects. For example, before you develop any solution, any product, or any program, how do you develop that? So what kind of creative thinking you are putting into? Now the creative thinking includes, are you reaching out to the stakeholders who will tomorrow have an impact on them? Are you understanding what is changing in the market? Are you understanding what is changing in the professions where this qualification tomorrow will have to go? Are you understanding the success profiles who are successful after taking this program and joining some organization? So one is getting and gathering the market insights. That's very critical for one individual. Then we talked about that the ability to then gather that all information and design a particular solution. Now today is time when you are developing a solution, there is a need to have multiple stakeholders. Today engineering has not stayed an engineering only. It requires to partner with the people from humanities. It requires to partner with people from agriculture. It may require you to partner with the psychologists, psychiatrists, or people from management. So are you able to identify who are the stakeholders with whom you need to actually work? And then based on that, are you able to develop the overall objectives of your program? Then at the same time, are you able to develop and design a complete strategy for delivering this program? So what are the components that you are going to add into it? What kind of curriculum design, what kind of teaching pedagogy that you want to adopt, depending upon the inclusivity aspects. So I think all these aspects are very critical. If you are the head of the institution, how are you going to develop your teams? How are you going to upskill them to come and deliver upon the objectives that have been set by this program? How are you going to constantly keep on improving and developing and changing depending upon the what changes you see in the outside world happening? So how can you continuously keep on motivating and encouraging and challenging the mental abilities of the student? And the most important thing is, how do you continue to be a role model for your people, for the students who must consistently get inspired by what you are trying to do? And as I said in the beginning, it is the character and the competence that is critical for any individual to develop that trusting relationship or develop that trustworthiness with the environment. So also remember one thing, the technology is changing so fast that every aspect of teaching today is getting linked to one or the other form of automation. So a faculty must be completely aware about the technological changes and or the automation that is actually disrupting that job, that work, that course, or his own job and his own course. So these, I think, are very, very important, especially post-pandemic now that the blended solutions are and the hybrid solutions are taking up. So how do you make the hybrid solutions more effective is another area that the faculty has to work on.
Any other participant? Sir, I have one question. Our curriculum does not encourage leadership, and nowadays a leadership quality is very important for the students. So how we can incorporate something in the curriculum or activities so that the students will be able to get the leadership skills in them.
See, मुझे कभी what I feel sometimes that some of the existing mechanisms that we have developed while for delivering the content that we organize group activities within. So, for example, you have given a case study or you have given a project to a group. Now, in that project, while we are giving that project delivery assignment to a group, we also give them certain tidbits on what is the project leadership that the student is expected to deliver. And in that project leadership, someone can be a data, someone can be information gatherer, someone can be analyzer, someone can be, everyone plays some role. So if faculties are in advance giving these insights to students that as a project team, you will have to work. So it gives enough opportunities to students to come and analyze and present and discuss. And now these group activities in itself are a way of inculcating certain leadership qualities among the student. आप कोई केस स्टडी पे डाल दीजिए, आप कोई मार्केट रिसर्च पे डाल दीजिए. So whatever activities you are giving, for example, in a class you give a flip class. Now that's also inculcating one set of leadership quality among individual. It can be a communication quality that you want to focus on. So it all depends about the advanced planning of a faculty, that which qualities I want to inculcate and what are the methods I can integrate within my existing system, unless I want to innovate and do something new. I think that's possible.
Thank you, sir. Any other participant, if they want to ask, they can ask. Or I request all the participants to switch on their camera so we can take a group photograph with sir. And please, sir, please stop the sharing. So please switch on the cameras so we can take a.
Good evening to all of you. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Ajay Kumar Bansal for the vote of thanks. Please.
Thank you. Respected dignitaries, speakers, faculty members, and my dear participants. I am here to propose the vote of thanks. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on the occasion of session 3 of day 2 in the online Atal Academy online faculty development program on leadership and team working for education excellence. I, on behalf of organizing team and entire fraternity of the educationists and on my own personal behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the speaker for honoring us to be the speaker in the occasion. At the outset, I place on record my sincere gratitude to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central University of Haryana, Professor Tankeshwar Kumar, for providing his valuable guidance, direction, and encouragement. Profound thanks and gratitude are also due to Tankeshwar sir for his support rendered to us. Now I register my profuse thanks to Professor Raj Nehru, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Vishwakarma Skill University, for accepting our invitation and giving a thoughtful talk on leadership and faculty development. Today we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts on various aspects of leadership and this will surely help us in becoming effective leaders in the future. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and has shown us the new path in this direction. An event of this magnitude requires meticulous planning and execution. I have been extremely fortunate to able to draw upon the willing support of the colleagues who have demonstrated initiatives and involvement at every step and make the task easier. I thank all the organizing team members for their support. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this occasion. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for giving us time from your busy schedule and for your motivational talk. We will be benefited by your views. Definitely, sir, it will help us in developing as a great leader.
Okay, ji. Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.